Everyone needs to pay attention to this. Your pensions and retirements at risk. They don't have any more money to take from. Please watch this video. Also, stay to the end because you're gonna see how these accounts are dropping. Blackrock, Blackstone, and it's gonna affect your pension and retirement accounts. They have nothing else to steal and take from. Protect your money. I'll leave my information below to show you how. Pay attention to this video.
So thanks to the war in Iran, it looks like the United States economy and the investment markets are on the verge of deleveraging. If you have a 401k, this might be really important. There's something happening right now which involves the companies that are maybe managing your retirement money. It's called private credit market.
What private credit is, just in its simplest form, is private loans to privately owned companies, privately owned real estate, and privately owned infrastructure.
You see, when most people need a loan, they go to the bank. Well, banks are regulated. There's rules about how much risk they can take. But over the last 20 years or so, there's sort of been what economists call a shadow version of the banking system. They're called private credit markets. Companies like Blackstone, Apollo, and Blue Owl that started lending money to companies. Well, hold on, where do they get the money from? They got it from pension funds, insurance companies, and everyday retirement investors with 401ks. And with that money, they then lent it out at higher interest rates with almost no oversight and very little transparency.
Breaking news as bank runs begin and your 401k and pensions are toast. Did you guys know that the private equity market that's absolutely falling apart right
And I'm
now
telling
is
you
being
this.
funded almost entirely by you? Did you know that? Did you know that your 401k and
Us.
pension almost funds 100% of private equity? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And then at the end of this video, we're going to talk about how to potentially hedge yourself through this incredibly frustrating, toxic time. Now, before I show you guys how 401ks and pensions are funding this entire thing, including AI data centers, did you guys know that? You're responsible for your electricity and your water going up because you're the one that's funding the AI data centers. Absolutely insane. But before I get there, let me give you guys an update about what's happening today with banking and private equity. And this is a branch off of yesterday's video because we went over another 5 banks that have suspended the redemption withdrawals from their investors. So they have investors coming in trying to get money, and they're saying, no, you can't have this money because we will have a total bank run and we'll go out of business. In so many words, they're not saying that. That's what will happen. Now, this is Justin, and here's who we're going to add to the list. Morgan Stanley restricts redemptions at private credit fund after withdrawals surge. And remember, who's funding that? You are. Also, Justin, Deutsche Bank flags $30 billion in private credit exposure. And I'm just going to read this paragraph down here. Deutsche Bank flagged a $26 billion or $30 billion exposure to private credit, an asset class that's grappling with fund redemptions, meaning people want their money back. They don't want any part of this. Scrutiny of underwriting standards because they've been rated AAA. Okay, so there's been bonds that have been rated AAA like Tricolor, and then they went bankrupt 2 weeks later. So they're starting to figure out that the underwriting mechanisms aren't working because underwriting can't pick up fraud. And the impact of AI on some borrowers, such as software makers that are working to replace themselves. In its annual report published Thursday, the lender said it is not exposed to significant risk related to non-bank financial institutions. Here is the but that it could face potential indirect credit risk through interconnected portfolios and counterparties, which is another word for third-party counter risk, which we've been warning you guys about for months because this is all entangled. Failures of select number of subprime lenders in the U.S. increased investor focus on risk associated with private credit and raised wider concerns around underwriting standards and, you've guessed it, fraud risks. And a quick post from our great friend, Melody Wright. If you guys don't know who she is, I suggest you find out because she is awesome and she is a fighter of the people. Melody says, any other GFC survivors out there, remember the town hall because she's letting us know that private credit firm Eris, which we've warned you guys about. You guys can go back about 2 months. We did a Blue Owl, we did Eris, we did all of these people. We warned you they're the next to go down, and that's exactly what's happening. but they're now holding a town hall to lie, which is to say reassure staff on market volatility. Do you guys remember that? Now I want to show you guys the numbers on 401ks and then pensions, and then we're going to talk about how much of 401ks and pensions are funding private equity. And when I tell you the numbers, guys, it's going to exceed the amount that's being disclosed to us. So right now, private equity accounts for $5 trillion roughly, right? So 5 trillion. But let's read this now, starting with 401ks. It's going to start out good. The total US defined contributed 401k market stands at roughly $14 trillion in assets. So I want you guys to remember $14 trillion. And remember, it's $5 trillion in private equity. Now, despite this massive pool, direct private equity investments in 401k plans is currently negligible. The structural barriers, minimal investment thresholds in the millions for PE funds. Liquidated mismatches, complex valuations, and fiduciary risk have kept PE largely out of 401ks. Only a handful of plans have added private assets to their menus, and many plan advisors say the companies they work with have little interest in that debate. Now, that was true up until last year, because remember this, you guys, this is, however, changing rapidly. In August of
Yeah,
2025,
Trump
President Donald
changed
Trump
it. He
signed an
allowed it
executive order
for
aimed
private
at
equity.
easing the private equity, real estate, and other alternative assets in 401k plans. Major record keepers and asset managers are now pushing hard to enter the space. Empower, which administers more than $2 trillion in assets across 89,000 DC plans, launched a series of PE inclusive funds in a collaboration with Apollo, Partners Group, and Blackstone. T. Price, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard are also launching private market funds for retirement accounts.
Mm.
Private equity firms have acquired more than 900, and think of this, acquired. So they bought the advisors. So they purchased the
Wow.
advisors, but they say independent, right? Independent retirement consultants and advisor firms over the past decade to help facilitate access, but I'll say manipulate the market. Industrial proponents
Yeah, that's your
suggest that
money,
and
the
here's the important
retirement
part,
money.
10 to 20% allocation to private investments in 401ks could improve diversifications and returns for participants. So if we take 14 trillion and we take the 20% allocation, that means from 401ks, roughly $2.8 trillion in 401ks could be in private equity right now. But that's just 401ks. Now let's go over pension funds. And this is shocking. Defined benefit pension funds are the dominant source of retirement capital in private equity. Listen, guys,
That's not
pension
good.
funds, not counting 401k, just pension funds globally are responsible for an estimated 40% of private equity funds. 40% of all of the crap you guys see pension retirement accounts. How do you feel about that? US pension plans manage roughly $5 trillion in total assets across roughly 6,000 state and local retirement systems. The average US pension plan now allocates 10 to 15% of its total assets to private equity. Now that's up from 7 to 8% in 2010, meaning roughly $700 billion of US public pension plans are in private equity. Nearly 90% of US public pension funds invest some portion of their portfolio in private equity, representing more than 34 million Americans in the public working sector. 34 million Americans. Now let's talk about US corporate pension funds, which manage approximately $3.5 trillion in total assets. Analysts of 418 Fortune 1000 plan sponsors found that these plans collectively held over $1.5 trillion in pension plans and pension assets as of the end of 2023. So let's take 700 billion from the US public pension funds, which it's more than that. And then we're going to take 1.5 trillion from US corporate pension funds as well, which we know is also more than that because that's in 2023. And then let's add this last one here, which is total global pension funds, which account for $707 billion in private equity as of 2024. Now, when we add all of that together, you guys, that equals what I just went over, 5.7 trillion. So 5.7 trillion of pension and 401k goes into private equity, but only
No,
5
that's too
trillion in private
much.
equity is being reported. Does that mean, and it's
Where
probably
the
you know,
rest
does
of
that
the
mean
money?
$700 billion just went to commission, bonus, and things of that nature? Because where did that money go if it's exceeding
We're
the amount being
talking
reported?
about
That's
fees
insane.
in your
Now, the last
retirement
thing before
plan.
we go to Mitch, here's the key takeaway. In summary, defined benefit pension plans have deployed hundreds of billions and collectively well over $1 trillion globally into private equity. And many are actually struggling to reduce their allocations due to the lack of PE exits. And the determining 401k plans, by contrast, have almost no current direct exposure to PE. But the 14 trillion DC market is being aggressively targeted by PE firms, record keepers,
Mm.
and the Trump administration's regulatory push, with 2026 widely expected to be the year meaningful adoption begins because they need as much money of yours as possible to facilitate this AI data center catastrophe. Mitch, can you articulate to mom and pop just
This
how
is the
bad all this
update.
private equity meltdown
Update.
is for
Update.
them, for their pensions and 401k? And can you further reiterate the fact that it's their money that's funding all of this to begin with, and all these data centers that are jacking up utilities, waters, even health risk is from their money. Their money is being invested into their own community. And by the way, I know they want a return on their investment, but how can they get a return on their investment when their utilities have been jacked up by that same investment? They're not making enough money to offset the increases in utilities alone. Let's go now and talk about the private credit catastrophe, and let's give the viewers an update on exactly what's happening. All right, quick update on where we're at with private credit right now. So we have Blue Owl, which is halted their quarterly withdrawals on a $1.6 billion with the B fund. We also have BlackRock that capped their $26 billion fund. This is the first time ever. So what does that tell you? Blackstone capped it as well on their $82 billion fund. Withdrawal requests were 7.9% in Q1 of this year. I think they capped that at 5%. Also, you guys, Morgan Stanley also capped. Okay. Again, Blue Owl halted, completely halted. But Morgan Stanley capped withdrawals at 5%. Total requested was 11%.
Mm.
Cliffwater also capped withdrawals at 7%. The total requested was double that at 14%. And JP Morgan is essentially saying that more collateral is required because of essentially the risk exposure. And just one more time so you're clear, remember the private
Wow.
equity market is your market. That's your money
That's
from
your
your
money.
401k and
Your
for your
pensions.
retirement. Understand what they're doing. These banks that you see here are using our retirement funds to strangle us, to absolutely destroy our comfort of living. They're doing that with our retirement funds.
So that video ended. So here's Cliffwater. So this is one of the other companies that was halting withdrawals or restricting how much you can withdraw. So let's see how much in their pensions. Pay attention here. So this here is private equity, public stocks, private public access. So according to last year, and this is from Cliffwater, okay? This is a study from them. This is their report. See, read the full Cliffwater report here. According to the American Investment Council annual public pension report, 34 million public servants depend on private equity to support their retirements. Private equity delivered 15 million annualization return of 10 years of the public pension fund, but that was back in 2021. We talking about now with President Trump, and this is why I tell y'all we on our own. You can't depend on either president. Okay, we on our own. Everybody needs to be independent. Anywho, he assigned the executive order August 2025. You can look that up on whitehouse.gov or put it in AI. AI tell you for private equity firms to be put in retirement funds now and pensions. So going back to Cliffwater, 89% of their public pension funds are in private equity funds. 93% of public pension funds have increased their private equity allocations. That's very risky. Again, this is not financial advice. This is only for education, training purposes only. All we do here is teach you to diversify your money and put your money in safe money, okay? And protect yourself. This is happening. This is them. This is the last pot of money to steal from. You know we in 36 plus trillion. Is it 38 trillion now? In debt. So let's go to this company. So if we look at all of the public government pension exposures, when we look at private equity and these credit firms that's going under, that's halting or limited withdrawals to like 5%, BlackRock, Blackstone, Morgan Stanley, Cliffwater. So BlackRock, move my camera, they invested heavily in public pensions and other alternatives. Blackstone, they're in private equity. This is the same with public pensions and retirement system. That can be TSP, 457, 403Bs, uh, of course, 401ks. BlackRock is also in 401ks and TSP because I help retirement workers with their TSP federal workers because they don't own their retirement through MetLife. But that's even worse, putting them here with BlackRock, who's their TSP fund advisor for their allocations. Morgan Stanley, retirement solutions for government entity. Same, your 401k, 403, 457, TSP, Cliffwater, research funds with private equity outperforms and state pension funds. But of course, they was another private equity firm, private credit firm, limiting or halting a limited amount of withdrawals. These funds, when you talk about public, this can be teachers, firefighters, police officers, anybody in the public sector, right? City, county, state, right? Even federal, because BlackRock is over the TSP federal retirement system. Let's keep going. Y'all have to pay attention to this. Please, please pay attention. See, here you go. Even how is it at risk with the private sector? So even in the private sector, previously we talked about the public and the private, but this is the private sector. So BlackRock is one of the largest managers of your 401k and defined contribution plans in the US. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, AT&T, this is them using their private credit. They're using your retirement funds to fund credit out to other lenders, but it's collapsing because guess what? The lenders and investors saying, "Hey, the Iran war has started. We want our money back," and that's why they limiting and halting withdrawals. Blackstone and Cliffwater offer private credit. They private credit also. Equity funds may include corporate pensions, targeted date retirement funds. See, Blackstone target date retirement funds. Those are also with your 401k, 403b, 457 TSPs. Because we know a lot of 403bs are pensions too. I'm going to clarify. I just want to clarify that. Morgan Stanley Wealth and Retirement Planning, private employees, unions, high net worth individuals. What did they do? What does this all mean when this happens? Let's keep going. What's the end result, right? Here's the end result. So this is a Alpha X, and this gentleman put this here. This is how much they stocks have fallen. See, so when you have investors pulling their money out, this affects your pension and your retirement accounts. So here you go, Blue Owl, 44%. Blackstone down 35%, Wells Fargo down 21%, Morgan Stanley 15%, BlackRock 15%, Goldman Sachs 14%, JP Morgan 13%. Now remember, this is as of March 12th. This can be further down than these amounts that these companies have losing. This is stock. So remember, These same companies invest in your pension and retirement plans. So with them making bad investments with your money, and let me tell you this, all these companies that's listed, they're broke without your money. They are broke without your money. See, it's just like the banks. They take your money and lend it out to make more money. And if they take a loss, guess what? That's a loss on your money because they're still collecting off of fees, right? Remember, these companies get paid whether the market goes down or it goes up. Just look at what happened in the 2008, 2009 crisis. What's the bank that went over and they had a lot of retirement people funds? Washington Mutual. Yeah, go look that story up. It's a good documentary called The Retirement Dilemma by PBS that explains all of that. But anyway, this is just me giving you kind of whole synopsis of what's going on. You have to, please, and I say this all the time, who's protecting your money, your health, retirement, your family, and your business? See, we're trying to teach you to be proactive and not reactive. Don't wait for something to happen. And listen, we in 2026, a lot of y'all gonna have to start taking your money serious, your life serious, your health serious. You see what's going on with the Iran war. So we already know when wars happen and break out, guess what? The stock market go down and tank. But not only that, we finna get hit more with inflation. You see that the grocery store is still, even with a new president, right? Now the gas has went up astronomically because of the war. And these companies, because investors see, they watch economics, politics, and economy. You don't. You should be. So you mean to tell me you done work all these years? I don't care if you work 2 years and invested. 2 years to 30, 40 years, and your money can be wiped out. How you protecting it? We can help you protect your money. Cause see, we working with safe money and you diversifying your money. Even if you put your money invested, it's something you can control. A lot of these stocks and mutual funds or ETFs that they put you in, these companies control. I can ask you all right now, if I was to ask you, do you know even what company that's investing in your 401k? A lot of people don't know that. I remember mine, Fidelity. I mean, you should be checking your statements every 6 months to a year. I've worked with people. A guy under this last administration with Joe Biden, the economy was so bad and inflation was the highest that it had ever been under any other president. This man account went down from in a matter of less than 3 months from $1.1 million to 700. I want to say around 50 or $80,000. Look how much he lost because the economy was bad. You had the war going on in Ukraine, bad policies, the open border, all of that. But you had people like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. You had Warren Buffett. All of them were cashing out. They all have cashed out now. Look at Warren Buffett. He cashed out his Bank of America stock. He cashed out his Apple stock. He's sitting on cash because you know when the market fall, he's gonna go back in and buy like wholesale prices. It's gonna be a fire sale. Start watching what these people do. The Warren Buffetts, and I know he's retired now. The Ray Dalios. Start watching what they're doing. But anyway, I'm in this video again. My name is Sherry with Secure Lifetime Legacy, where we teach you to be proactive and not reactive when it comes to protecting your money, health, your time, and your family and your business without relying on your job or corporation, the government, or the banks. Please follow, like, and subscribe and book appointment with me or take your free retirement evaluation. But again, we're here to help. To another video. Take care, and let's expand our knowledge beyond the unthinkable.